Hi and welcome back to our series of tutorials on PanMesh. In this demonstration I'm going to show you how to create a model with multiple regions in plan, each of these regions potentially having different material properties. To do this I start with the usual example model which I use, which has no inbuilt numerical model. I click on data preparation, on well reservoir and fluid description, on numerical model as usual, and it gives me the drawing pad. I can create a simple square model by clicking on the rectangle option, and at this point if I click on check the model, I see I almost have a valid model. All that's missing is the well configuration. That's because it takes the material properties from the underlying pan system model. So if I go back here, I can click on scale model and I will create a model, for argument's sake, 1500 feet by 800 feet and let's say 80 feet thick. So here's my model. At this point I will complete a valid model by giving the completion data, and I will say that there is a completion which starts at a depth of 20 feet and which is 10 feet long, so it ends at a depth of 30 feet. And if I check the model now, I'll see that I have a valid model. But what I want in this demonstration is to show how to build a model with two or more regions of different material properties. And in order to do that, all I have to do is basically break the model in plan into two regions. And note that in this view, and by default, I'm looking at what we call the region view, and I can also look at it in terms of the material property view, which if I click on this, you'll see that the two regions apparently disappear. Now in fact the two regions are still there, but they're of one material property, and therefore because I am now using material property map, I see the reservoir as one material. So in order to demonstrate how to put a second material, what I will do is I will go to the material properties tab, and just as an aside before that, I'll go to material distribution, and you see here that I have two regions, a single layer, two regions, each of the same material property. If I go to the material properties tab, I can create a second material simply by clicking on new, and you see that by default, of course, this material has no properties. So what I will do then to quickly fill this or populate it is I will copy the material properties from material 1 and I will paste them to material 2. Now I have two materials theoretically, but they have both the same properties. So what I'm going to do for the purposes of this demonstration is I'm going to say that the second material is of much lower permeability. So now I have two materials, one with much lower permeability. But as it stands, I'm still not using the second material. So I will now demonstrate two ways in which I can distribute that material. I can go to the material distribution tab here, and I can say region 2. And if I go back here just to confirm which is region 2, region 2 is the green region, the second region I created. So region 2 I will make to set to material 2. You can see now in this it's showing green is material 2, and if I go back here to the material views, I'm now seeing that material 1 is on the right in the main body of the reservoir, and there's a second compartment now of this material 2 that I have created. I can also change the material properties by using the select option in the reservoir geometry tab. So I can actually select a region, and then if I click on, let's say in this case, material 2, it changes that region from material 1 to material 2, and I could click on here and set that to material 1. So I've swapped the materials. Or I can actually select both regions by drawing the rectangle or window across them and set them both either to material 1 or them both to material 2. And finally, in a system where I might have multiple regions, such as, let me create a system with more than 2 regions, so I'll say another region here which you're not seeing until I click on region index, and I can click on another one here. So now I have 4 regions, and let's say that I want material 2 in this region and in this region. If I go back to material color, that means I want material 1 in these 2 regions here, and in order to do that I can simply go to select mode, press Control, choose that region, keep Control pressed, choose that region, and then click on the key here, material 1, and I have now changed the distribution of materials. For the purposes of this demonstration, I want to show the effect of these lateral regions with a lower permeability, and I want to be able to distinguish between their effect and the actual no-flow outer boundary. So what I'm going to do is choose Move and drag these lines across closer to the wellbore so that we will see the effect of these boundaries, material internal boundaries, before we see the outer boundary effect. So this model is ready. If I click on Model Check, I will see that the model is correct and valid, and therefore now I can simply click on OK, go back to the simulation option, numerical simulation tab, PanMesh New Run, click on OK, and the model is built. And here we see the model in 3 dimensions with the 4 regions clearly distinguished. And now what we'll do is we'll run the simulation by clicking on Run Simulation or pressing F5, and we'll see what the response looks like. Immediately we can see here the partial completion. It tries to get as far and does get as far as some radial flow, and then we're getting some kind of effect where normally if it looks at first glance like a semi-steady state, but we can see that there's a curve on this. It's not a straight line. Let's have a look at what's happening in the simulation. We will choose the color contour option. We will go back in time, and there we can see the kind of effect that we might expect to see with the pressure transient going out linearly through those regions. And if we put on, go back further in time, and we click on the radius of investigation option, and we zoom in by clicking on this button here on the radius investigation, we can see that partial completion very distinctly. Let's see what happens to the radius of investigation as time goes by. Comes out, we're getting the partial completion effect. Hits the top surface, comes down, hits the bottom surface, gets into radial flow, and then it starts to feel these lateral regions of low permeability, and then transient goes through those regions. So in this tutorial we learned how to build a model with multiple regions and assign different material properties to those regions. Thank you for your attention, and keep an eye out for other tutorials on model building with PanMesh.